Following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. And your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, July 9th. Your readers today are
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. And to our weather. Breezy at times today with sun breaking through clouds at times. A thunderstorm in spots in the afternoon, a high of 85. A thunderstorm in parts of the area tonight, a low of 68. A couple of showers and a thunderstorm tomorrow, a high of 81. And Saturday, mostly sunny and a high of 82. And Sunday, mostly sunny and a high of 83. Enjoy all the summer gatherings that are available to you this beautiful weekend. Nationally, high and low. The high was in Needles, California, 107. The low was also in California, but in Truckee, California, 34. Sunrise this morning at 5:46 a.m. and sunset tonight at 8:56 p.m. And our weather trivia. Has it ever reached 100 degrees in Alaska? Yes, at Fort Yukon in June 1915. I would have never believed that. Yeah, that was a good trivia. So it can't get hot in Alaska. And now to our front page news. U.S. hits Iran with fresh strikes after Trump declaration. The U.S. military said on Wednesday that it was launching fresh strikes on Iran aimed at keeping the critical Strait of Hormuz open to traffic, hours after President Trump declared that an interim agreement to end the war with Iran was over. In a flare-up that sent oil prices up about 7%, Iran said on Wednesday it had struck U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait, triggering U.S. retaliatory strikes. The escalation has been triggered by Iran's attacks on Tuesday on 3 cargo ships in the Strait of Hormuz. At the direction of the Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Central Command forces have started conducting additional strikes against Iran to further degrade their ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command wrote in a post announcing Wednesday a fresh round of strikes on X. The United States is holding Iran accountable for its recent unjustified aggression against commercial shipping and civilian crews freely navigating a vital international waterway. Control of the strait, through which a fifth of global oil supplies pass, has given Tehran immense leverage, effectively allowing it to force a stalemate with the world's most powerful military. While Iran has not claimed responsibility for the attacks, analysts say Tehran uses such actions to underscore that leverage as it negotiates a long-term peace deal with the U.S. The latest exchange of strikes has rattled a shaky ceasefire agreement and dented hopes of turning the Memorandum of Understanding signed on June 17th into a permanent peace deal to end the war, which began with U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on Iran on February 28th. If we make a deal with Iran, I'm not sure that will stick, Trump had said during a press conference in Ankara, Turkey on Wednesday, where he was attending a summit of NATO military alliance. I found them to be very dishonorable people. But Trump said he did not expect a return to full-fledged war, and it was not immediately clear whether the negotiations on reaching a permanent deal would continue. Asked before the summit whether the Memorandum of Understanding was over, Trump said, "It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them." As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them, he told reporters. Now I'll let our wonderful negotiators keep talking if they want, but I don't see it. I don't like these people, you know that. A source familiar with the Ankara talks said Trump did not repeat his comments excuse me, about the interim deal being over when NATO leaders met, but he later warned of new strikes before meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Shipping data showed at least 4 oil and gas tankers had turned back rather than to try to transit the Strait of Hormuz, central to global energy trade. Iranian state media said 8 Iranian service personnel had been killed in U.S. strikes on southern Iran. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei said the U.S. attacks had violated the memorandum by challenging a clause that emphasizes the Islamic Republic of Iran's responsibility in determining arrangements for the safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. A spokesperson for Parliament's National Security Commission said options for retaliation, including withdrawing from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT, changing Iran's nuclear doctrine, and closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait at the mouth of the Red Sea, another crucial global shipping route. Trump has at times stepped back from the threats he has made against Iran, but oil prices jumped and global bond markets tumbled. Brent crude futures leapt 7%, the most in a day since late May at $79.07 a barrel. While that was far below the peaks above 120 seen at the height of the fighting, it was enough to inject fresh inflation risk into the bond market, particularly since months of conflict have drawn down global oil inventories. The Revolutionary Guards, or the IRGC, said they had attacked U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait and shot down a U.S. MQ-9 drone attempting to interfere in the operation. Bahrain's army later said it had thwarted Iranian attacks. The U.S. had earlier launched strikes and revoked a license allowing Iran to sell oil in response to attacks on 3 tankers in the strait. Iran's top joint military command, Qatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, called the U.S. strikes a blatant act of aggression. Iranian media reported explosions on Karg Island, on Qasem Island, and in the southern port cities of Sirik and Bandar Abbas. A U.S. official told Reuters that strikes targeted Iranian air defense systems, coastal surveillance systems, surface-to-air missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, and drone launch sites. No civilian deaths were reported in Iran. Control of the Strait of Hormuz, which runs between Iran and Oman, has given Tehran immense leverage as it negotiates with Washington. Under the interim U.S.-Iran agreement, the U.S. Treasury issued a general license to allow the sale of crude to petrochemical and petroleum products of Iranian origin through August 21st. In revoking that license on Tuesday, it gave Iran July 17th to wind down any transactions. Trump on Wednesday informed his Syrian counterpart Ahmed Sarra that he had decided to remove the country from the U.S. list of designated state sponsors of terrorism. I promise to remove all barriers stopping you from rebuilding your country, and very soon you will finally be able to do so, he wrote in a letter to Sarra, seen by Reuters. We have U.S. companies ready to invest in Syria and help make your country greater and more prosperous than ever before. He added in the letter that a U.S. administration official was handed to al-Sarra after their meeting in Ankara on Wednesday. Trump said that he had notified Congress, which will now conduct a 45-day review before the decision can take effect. The designation as a state sponsor of terrorism carries restrictions on U.S. foreign assistance, defense exports, and certain financial transactions. Ruth?
State plan will map next great chapter of city's waterfront. This is from the Albany Bureau Chief. Developers and politicians have been trying to maximize the potential of Buffalo's waterfront for generations. On Wednesday, Governor Kathy Hochul said the state needs to take the next steps to realize that potential. In an initiative intended to maximize the potential of Buffalo's waterfront, the Hochul administration plans to hire a consulting firm to study the creation of a year-round mixed-use development community over the next 3 years to add to the area's existing revitalization. The firm, once selected, will gauge input from residents, businesses, and local leaders to plan the design of a community sited from the Erie Basin Marina to Michigan Avenue, bordered by the Buffalo River and I-90, including Salem Field, officials said. Once a decaying industrial corridor, the waterfront now features Canalside, Keybank Center, and a revitalized cobblestone district. A Hochul administration official told the Buffalo News that the study, announced Wednesday, is the start of developing a cohesive plan to ensure that the waterfront reaches its full potential, to ensure that there is a unified, sound path forward that builds on the existing foundation to make Buffalo's waterfront into a year-round, vibrant community. The study will look at developing new parcels of land that are now either vacant or underused and decide what the next stages should be according to people familiar with the plan. The effort will involve the administration's Empire State Development as well as Erie County, the City of Buffalo, and public and private stakeholders. The blueprint is expected to prioritize financial feasibility, market demand, and seamless integration with other ongoing projects in the city, the governor's office said in a news release. This strategic initiative marks the next great chapter for Buffalo's waterfront, transforming decades of momentum into a unified vision for a vibrant, year-round community. The study will evaluate potential development sites and scenarios and provide the public and private partners with a vision of what is next, officials said. Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation chairperson Joan Kresner said in a statement that the new initiative would provide the exact roadmap we need to keep moving forward. By convening our local partners and the City of Buffalo, we can coordinate our efforts to tackle shared opportunities, delivering a vibrant neighborhood that locals and visitors alike can enjoy every single day of the year. The Philadelphia-based Penrose Group is preparing to build 251 apartments on the North Odd Block at Canalside, the former site of the Memorial Auditorium. The $190 million project recently drew concern from developers and business leaders, irked that the plan could include more low-income and federally subsidized housing than the market-rate housing initially proposed. In turn, Penrose's Director of Development has said the project is substantially similar to where we started and retains the vision of what we were trying to achieve, a mixed-income property at Canalside. Hochul's office is in touting the plans for redeveloping the waterfront. Noted other ongoing projects include the continuation of construction by Sinatra and Company at Heritage Point on the South Odd Block, the Erie County Harbor Development Corporation's completion of the Chandlery on the North Odd Block, evolution of the Golisano Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship, the opening of the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority's Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad Terminal facility, and redevelopment of affordable housing at the Buffalo Housing Authority's Commodore Perry Homes and Marine Drive apartments.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This time is 14 minutes after the hour, and we will go to our editorial, Planned Chaos. Buffalo is not alone. The destructive and deadly custom of neighborhood-wide takeovers is becoming a scourge throughout the U.S. It is a relief to know this. Not really. If anything, that knowledge makes the problem seem even more overwhelming. However, now that we do have an understanding of how takeovers are being planned and executed and the damage they can do to human lives and property, a strategy for stopping them before they start can and must be executed. This cannot be another finger-pointing game. As reported by the news Aaron Bessaker and Ben Tujimoto early Sunday morning, 11 people were shot on Buffalo's east side in at least 5 locations. Most, if not all, of these shootings stemmed from a large street takeover. It all happened within a 2-hour period, with 4 people shot on Stevens Avenue, 3 on Glenwood Avenue, 1 on Moselle Street, and 1 on Humber Avenue, 1 on Grider Street. One shooting victim was taken to Erie County Medical Center from an undetermined site. Police Commissioner Erica Shields pointed to the organizer of a large party at East Delavan Avenue and Grider as the person who provoked the July 4th violence by bringing a crowd of thousands to the location. The crowd was such that firefighters and ambulance crews had a tough time reaching at least some of the shooting victims. While many of the attendees of this event came from within the city, others came in from nearby suburbs via ride-sharing services. Shields says she is working with other city officials on at least a civil action against this promoter, though criminal charges, if possible, seem appropriate given the bloodshed that resulted from this party. Thankfully, all the shooting victims are expected to survive. Other than the slim outline of facts, little else has been released from official sources as the investigation continues. However, illegal street takeovers have a well-documented history throughout the U.S., and other cities are taking aggressive action to prevent them. Los Angeles County, where at least 1 person died during an event this summer, has stepped up enforcement against takeovers with fines of up to $1,000 for drivers, organizers, and promoters. In June, the police department in Charlotte, North Carolina, responded to a takeover by dispersing the crowd, making 24 arrests and citing 13 parents for contributing to juvenile delinquency. However, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department is also forming a team of school resource officers who already have relationships with many of the teams. Captain Eric Tran Thompson had a message for parents that will sound familiar to longtime eyewitness news watchers in Buffalo. Know where your child is. That many of the participants in the Buffalo takeover were children was stressed by Maston District Council members Annetta Everhart, who is frustrated that root causes are not being targeted and insists that community resources that give these young people better ways to occupy their time are urgently needed. In the end, the solution to preventing violent street takeovers will likely be some version of all of the above, combining both enforcement and restorative methods. Everhart is absolutely right about communities working together to provide alternatives for their young people, but we doubt that the promoters of these events will embrace that focus. As long as they can make money, they will continue to organize events that at the very least terrorize neighborhoods and destroy property. This recent takeover left a vandalized community garden in its wake. To their credit, volunteers were out the next day cleaning up the damage. The people who are encouraging these lawless gatherings should be targeted with civil action and/or criminal charges. Other preventive initiatives should be a collaborative effort between government, law enforcement, and community-based organizations. This can't be repeated.
And another Voice article is on education. It's written by Robert Bennett, who is Chancellor Emeritus of the New York State Board of Regents and a member of the Western New York Catholic Schools Board. Catholic schools prepare young people to lead. Strong schools are built on more than tradition. They are built on a shared vision, responsible leadership, and a commitment to continuous improvement. That is the opportunity before Catholic education today. The creation of a unified K-8 Catholic school system is a commitment to strengthening Catholic education for generations to come. The Diocesan School Board recognizes both the remarkable successes and the real challenges facing many of our 27 schools. Catholic schools have always embraced the dignity of every person, and we are committed to strengthening our ability to serve students with a wide range of academic, social, emotional, behavioral, and learning needs. Building the capacity of our schools to welcome and support all learners is not simply an educational priority, it is an expression of our Catholic mission to recognize the God-given worth of every child. The comprehensive K-8 plan will soon be submitted to the state's education department, and we are proud that the Middle States Commission approved every aspect of the initiative without exception. These milestones reflect careful planning, accountability, and a shared commitment to continuous improvement. Our goal is for every graduate to leave our schools with a strong academic foundation, a thorough understanding of the gospel, an appreciation for the Mass, and a lasting commitment to living a life of faith. We believe that kindness, compassion, integrity, generosity, understanding, and service to others are the defining characteristics of Catholic leaders. Looking ahead, the board's priorities are clear. We will continue enhancing fundraising efforts, strengthening cooperation among all 27 K-8 schools, expanding opportunities for all learners, and promoting a more civil society through Catholic education. Catholic education has long shaped not only successful graduates, but faithful, compassionate citizens. By embracing collaboration while remaining firmly rooted in our Catholic identity, we can ensure that our schools continue to inspire academic excellence, nurture faith, welcome every learner, and prepare young people to lead with character, purpose, and hope for generations to come.
And our editorial cartoon today is from Al Goodwin, Creator Syndicate. It is one frame. It is it has Graham Plater, I think is his name, who is the focus of the chaos in Maine caused by his run for the Senate. And his head is sticking out above being completely body covered in shoes. And he's got looking up at the top of his head, waiting for the next thing to happen. And his thought is waiting for another shoe to drop. And all of a sudden, the shoe drops right onto his head, leaving a big bump. And the shoe that hit him has the sign of rape allegations. There's certainly been enough coverage, I don't think, unless you've been under a rock, that you don't know what's happening in Maine. So it definitely illustrates his position.
Our first opinion piece is by Raja Krishnamurthy, who's from the Chicago Tribune. Iran gas tax will hit families in America. The next time you fill up your gas tank, you may be paying for President Trump's war with Iran. Just days into the new 60-day agreement, Iranian officials began discussing new charges on ships passing through the Straits of Hormuz. The Trump administration says they are not tolls. Iran calls them fees. American families will pay either way. That is the Iran gas tax. Trump's illegal war did not eliminate the threat. It left Iran with leverage over the world's most important oil transit choke point. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil move through the strait every day, representing about 20% of global petroleum consumption and roughly 25% of all seaborne oil trade. Even if every available alternative export route operated at maximum capacity, Goldman Sachs estimated that roughly 16 million barrels per day would still depend on Hormuz. Analysts warned that a prolonged disruption could create one of the largest energy supply shocks in decades. Excuse me. Tanker insurance costs surged during the conflict, and shipping markets immediately priced in the risk. The Trump administration says the problem has been solved. The facts on the ground suggest otherwise. What were once threats are now active discussions about fees, routing requirements, and expanding Iranian influence over shipping through the strait. Analysts continue warning that Iran's operational influence over the waterway could raise costs and suppress energy flows long after the shooting stopped. Trump declared victory over Iran, but Tehran kept its leverage. Americans do not need to buy a single barrel of Iranian oil to pay the price. Oil is traded in a global market. When supply is threatened or transportation costs rise, prices rise everywhere. Eventually, those costs show up at the gas pump and the grocery store and in household budgets across America. That is the Iran gas tax. Whether they call them fees, permits, or something else, the result is the same: higher costs moving through a critical global trade route. The less dependent America is on oil, the less power hostile governments have to raise costs on American families. The good news is that America was already moving in that direction. Instead of pulling back, we should be accelerating that progress by manufacturing more energy technologies here at home, strengthening domestic supply chains, modernizing the electric grid, and building the infrastructure needed to power the next generation of American industry. Every new source of homegrown energy makes America stronger and less vulnerable to decisions made half a world away. Unfortunately, the Trump administration is moving in the opposite direction. More than $22 billion in announced clean energy investments were canceled or withdrawn during the first half of 2025, affecting more than 38,000 projected jobs and slowing industries that strengthen America's economic and energy security. We should be restoring those investments and accelerating new ones. As long as hostile governments retain the ability to disrupt critical energy corridors, American families remain exposed to the costs. Trump says the war is over, but while he declared victory, Iran kept its leverage. American families may end up paying the bill.
A couple of little shorts. If I can just get to them, I will read them. But that's not happening. Trump will ask court to rehear birthright case. President Trump said Wednesday that he will ask the U.S. Supreme Court to rehear a case challenging his executive order curtailing birthright citizenship, a long-shot bid to reverse the court's rejection of one of his signature policies. The court last month rejected Trump's attempt to restrict birthright citizenship in the U.S., ruling that this directive violated language in the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment that confers citizenship to those born in the United States who are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The U.S. Supreme Court rarely grants requests to rehear cases and has not done so after issuing a ruling in an argued case in decades. You are listening to a reading with today's Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 28 minutes after the hour, and we will go to our remaining opinion pieces. The next coming from Kathleen Parker of the Washington Post. Secret South Carolina data center ignites furious reaction. Spartanburg, South Carolina. Elon Musk's idea to send data centers into space might prompt smirks in some quarters, but probably not Spartanburg, where a mega data center slipped into town, catching residents by surprise and spawning a revolt. Across the country, the explosion of data centers, driven by a surge in artificial intelligence demand, has created controversy because of environmental concerns, utility issues, and a lack of transparency mixed with misunderstanding among residents, corporate investors, and local leaders. About 3,000 data centers are in the United States, with roughly 1,500 more under development. The Spartanburg data center, which is under construction and slated to begin operations in the third quarter of this year, arrived with hardly anyone's notice until trees along South Pine Street were mowed down and heavy equipment started rolling in. The lack of awareness was no accident. Local officials who lured the project to Spartanburg County publicly referred to it as Project Mach 1 and characterized it as a high-performance computing center. This subterfuge is a classic example of good old boys dodging that comes back to bite local officials. Mach 1 was the work of Northmark Strategies, a New York investment firm that is developing the data center through its subsidiary, Valera Holdings. Because of the Spartanburg County Council's complicity in projecting the project until it was finalized, it took a while for people to figure things out. February 2025 agreement between Northmark and the county included a 40-year fee in lieu of tax agreement that lowered the property assessment ratio for Valera Holdings to 4%. The deal also included other tax credits. Even when Northmark announced the $2.8 billion center in a press release on April 22, 2025, it continued to use misleading language, saying it was redeveloping the now defunct Kohler manufacturing plant into a high-performance computing center. The real kicker is the small number of jobs it will create. When fully operational, at least 27 jobs, according to the governor's office. The secretive nature of the negotiations, though not illegal, fueled growing anger among residents who say they feel misled. 2 meetings were held recently to deal with the public outcry. On June 24th, Northmark hosted a virtual town hall. The following day, a state convened a meeting at the Spartanburg Memorial Auditorium to accommodate hundreds of outraged residents eager to discuss a proposed power plant expansion from a 50 megawatt to roughly 450 megawatts facility to support the data center. If approved, the facility would emit hundreds of tons of pollutants into the air annually through 35 exhaust stacks ranging in height from 31 to 80 feet. This includes more than 9 tons of carcinogenic formaldehyde and 158 tons of fine particulate matter, which is linked to asthma, birth defects, and lung cancer risk. The request for an increase in power also seemed to take residents by surprise, even though a county official confirmed that Northmark made clear in its original project profile that it would scale up to 450 megawatts. Maybe the message didn't get out properly, Mike Dobek, Vice President Real Estate Development for Northmark, told the Greenville News. Maybe Emily White of the Southern Environmental Law Center, which is fighting the permit request, said, "The lack of transparency is stunning." Accordingly, the state has extended the public comment period for a permit until July 31st. Meanwhile, Spartanburg County has joined several other counties in passing temporary moratoriums. Spartanburg County officials clearly wanted to keep their discussions under wraps while Northmark considered locations in other areas. And charitably, an investment of this scale would be hard for any community to resist. But politicians seem never to learn that they work for the people and not for corporations or private equity firms looking for a deal at the expense of residents and the environment, especially not in exchange for the quality of life that makes South Carolina a desirable place to call home. All things considered, space seems the proper place for data centers, and maybe for a few politicians, if Musk can make room on his rocket.
And our last opinion piece is by Catherine Ann Edwards from Bloomberg Opinion. A way to save Social Security? Focus on the gig economy. The Social Security Trust Fund will run out of money by late 2032, according to the annual report the program issued last month. The specific date is new. Last year's report projected insolvency by early 2023, but the overall trend is not. Social Security's long-run imbalance was first projected in 1985. Even for Congress, ignoring 41 years of warnings about a problem that is both consequential and easy to fix is breathtaking. It's also puzzling. Americans are not divided about Social Security or how to move forward. 85% would rather see a tax increase than a benefit cut. The most popular policy by far is eliminating the cap on Social Security taxes, which are not collected on earnings above $184,500, followed by a marginal rate increase to the payroll tax. These two changes alone would cover 87% of the 75-year shortfall, more if the tax contributions above the current cap are not credited with higher benefits. See, I told you it was easy to fix. The harder policy conversation is about how to expand and strengthen the program. Social Security is far from perfect, and the self-employed illustrate why. One way to improve the program: Social Security ought to change its tax treatment of self-employment and start taxing the employers of independent contractors. Self-employed individuals were left out of the 1935 legislation, but brought into coverage in the amendments of 1950. The tax structure of Social Security doesn't neatly apply to them. For payroll employees, the Social Security tax is split evenly between workers and their employers. Each puts in 6.2%. How much should a worker put in if they are their own employer? Initially, Congress split the difference. They paid a rate higher than the workers' tax but lower than the combined worker-employer tax. In 1983, Congress raised the rate to be on par with the combined worker-employer tax. In a concession to how burdensome this would be, Congress also created an income tax deduction for the Social Security taxes paid by the self-employed. That concession is no longer enough, if it ever was. The self-employment tax is still very problematic. For one, it makes self-employment, which is critical for a lot of business startups, more expensive. For another, it creates an incentive for the self-employed to underreport their income in order to lower their tax burden. There's evidence that that's exactly what they do, to a tune of billions of lost tax revenue each year. And since Social Security benefits are progressive, underreported income can both lower benefits for the individual and be relatively more expensive to Social Security. But one of the worst aspects of the self-employment tax is that it adds to the financial incentive for firms to prefer contractors over employees. There is even a name for this phenomenon. It's called misclassification, when workers who should be payroll employees and subject to payroll taxes and protected by the Fair Labor Standards Act are instead contractors. The Department of Labor has issued rules to reduce misclassification, but enforcement is weak. It's also difficult to stop the momentum of a trend. According to a 2017 report from the Treasury Department, the growth in self-employment since 2001 came mostly from contractors and misclassification. The good news is that this isn't hard. Social Security needs money. The economy needs new businesses. Employers need fewer temptations to misclassify. So levy a new tax for Social Security on employers with independent contractors. Think of it as a 1099 tax or a 1099 fee after the tax form that contractors file instead of an employee's W-2. How would such a tax work? One way would just be to set a rate based on the total compensation paid. So if a firm issued $100,000 in 1099 income, it would pay 6.2% on it. Another would be to structure it like a user fee and set a sliding scale based on the number of 1099s issued. The fee would be lower for firms that use relatively fewer contractors and higher for those that use relatively more. and some companies use 10 or even hundreds of thousands, or the system could be a combination of these approaches. Each system has downsides. The first example would give companies an incentive to pay contractors less, while the second gives them an incentive to use contractors less. In the case of the former, if self-employed workers no longer have to pay the employer's portion of the Social Security tax, they aren't necessarily worse off. In the latter, the idea is that a reduced demand for contractors would increase demand for employees. Of course, the Ubers and DoorDashes and TaskRabbits of the world would probably hate this, and anyone who proposes its risks being branded a communist who wants to kill American innovation, I get email. But these online gig platforms don't pay into Social Security for the millions of partners, they rely on to run their business, while every other employer does. That's not fair to either workers or other companies. Part of what makes Social Security so enduringly popular is its fairness and simplicity. Do you work? You pay in. Do you have workers? You pay in. How people work and how they are employed can change, but the principles behind Social Security don't. The across-the-board benefit cut that comes at the depletion of the trust fund is basically a forcing mechanism for Congress to act. A 1099 fee would be a way for Congress to extend that fairness and simplicity to the gig economy.
And now we will go to our business portion. Inflation concerns grow for Fed, minutes show. Concern about high inflation mounted at the U.S. Central Bank's meeting last month as officials followed Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh's lead to a more stripped-down policy statement, even amid concerns that price increases were broadening and might require interest rate hikes. A few participants at the June 16-17 meeting said there was already a case to raise borrowing costs, even though they ultimately agreed with their colleagues to hold the rate steady at this meeting. The broader debate, however, seemed evenly divided. Minutes of the session showed Wednesday, with most participants seeing a scenario in which inflation would fall toward the Fed's 2% target on its own, but also one in which it would remain high. Almost all of that latter group considered a rate increase as necessary if higher inflation persisted. It was clear from the readout that inflation dynamics were unsettling for a number of policymakers, with new concerns such as the inflationary impact of booming investments in artificial intelligence introduced into the debate.
ACA insurers seek more premium hikes as enrollment sags, and this is by KFF Health News. And KFF Health News is a national newsroom that produces in-depth journalism about health issues and is one of the core operating programs of KFF, the independent source for health policy research, polling, and journalism. For the second year in a row, many Affordable Care Act insurers are proposing double-digit premium increases, driven by rising medical costs as well as policy changes by Congress and the Trump administration. In preliminary filings with state regulators, insurers are seeking a median rate increase of 14% for 2027, according to an analysis of filings in 16 states and the District of Columbia by the Peterson KFF Health System Tracker. If those rates are ultimately approved, it would be the second highest increase since 2018. That would be a triple whammy for consumers, said Cynthia Cox, a senior vice president and the director of the program on the ACA at KFF. Because they already have had to pay higher premiums in 2026 and saw the expiration of more generous tax credits to offset their premiums in the end of last year. President Joe Biden sought to bolster the program known as Obamacare by enacting more generous tax subsidies, driving down out-of-pocket costs for consumers and increasing enrollment to more than 20 million Americans. But under President Donald Trump, Republicans have sought to scale back taxpayer support for ACA coverage, allowing the Biden-era enhanced subsidies to expire. As of February, ACA enrollment had fallen by about 3 million people compared with the same time last year. While Cox and other policy experts say that's because increased costs for the plans drove out people who feel they can get by without insurance, the Trump administration asserts that much of the enrollment growth under Biden was fraudulent. The main factor driving proposed premium increases for 2027, as in most years, is the rising cost and use of medical care. There is growing demand for costly specialty medications and for the weight loss drugs known as GLP-1s, and the Peterson KFF report notes. But the report also said that about 4 percentage points worth of the premium increases insurers proposed are due to lasting effects of the expiration of enhanced subsidies. Insurers expect that with young and healthy people leaving the program rather than paying higher premiums, their remaining customers will be older, sicker, and therefore costlier on average. It's likely that people who dropped their coverage were also the healthier people, because sicker people were probably going to try to make it work however they could to stretch their budget to keep their health insurance. In their rate filings, some insurers also said they had to raise premiums partly because of policy changes by the Trump administration that are expected to make it harder for some people to enroll. Together with the expiration of the larger subsidies, the new rules count for 12.7% of the increased requested rate change. It is not surprising insurance conglomerates that profited massively off the Biden-era fraud are complaining about efforts to clean up the program, White House spokesperson Kush Desai said in a statement. He added that the administration has made it clear that it will not follow its predecessors in giving out taxpayer-funded subsidies to big insurance companies through the form of fraudulent and corrupt policies, that it would hold big insurance companies accountable. Another driver of higher premiums cited by several insurers is that claims submitted on behalf of patients have tended to be for more intense and costly levels of care than in the past. Such increased severity may be because patients are actually sicker, or it may reflect that hospitals and doctors are using artificial intelligence to find billing codes that can maximize their payments, the report noted.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. Allison Dolores Barlow Elaine, nicknamed Gert. Bosk Wilford. Eisman Carol. Kleinfelter David. Clock Karen. Lefties Donald. Moran Daniel, nicknamed Dan. Neiparts Gail Ann. Weber Lois. Webster Dwayne. And on the national level, Louise Lasser, the star of Mary Hartman, Norman Lear's satirical soap opera, has died. She was 87. Lasser was born in New York City in 1939, and her parents were a tax specialist and a designer, and she attended Brandeis University, where she majored in political science and performed in musicals and cabaret. She dropped out in her senior year to pursue acting. Once again, if you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
And now we'll go to our Royal Stars, our astrology column. Happy birthday for Thursday, July 9th, 2026. You are curious, sensitive, imaginative, and realistic. You're enthusiastic about a wide range of subjects. This year, you will reap the benefits of all your hard work. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 is dynamic, 4 positive, 3 is average, 2 is so-so, and 1 is difficult. And it looks like everybody's having either a positive or an average day. Aries, average day. Your desire to relate to others, especially at work, will be stronger in the next 4 weeks, which is why you might choose to make peace with coworkers or customers. Tonight, check your money. Taurus, a positive day. Romance is favored in the next 4 weeks. In addition, your social life will get a boost because of opportunities to schmooze with others. Tonight, you're strong. Gemini, average day. Look for ways to improve where you live or make your digs more attractive. Real estate opportunities are particularly favored. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Cancer, average day. A lovely influence has just begun for your sign, which promotes interactions with siblings, relatives, and neighbors. You'll find that you'll be more charming when talking to everyone. Tonight, be friendly. Leo, average day. You will attract money, favors, and gifts from others in the next 4 weeks. Ka-ching! This could make you feel more extravagant. Tonight, be modest. Virgo, positive day. Lucky you. For the next 4 weeks, fair Venus will be in your sign, making you more charming and attractive in everyone's eyes. Tonight, explore. Libra, average day. Some of you will be involved in secret love affairs in the next 4 weeks, or a saucy flirtation that makes your heart skip a beat. Tonight, check your finances and check your spouse. Oh, that wasn't written in there, sorry. Scorpio, average day. Friendships will mean more to you in the next 4 weeks. Indeed, some will take a platonic friendship and move it into a romantic relationship. Tonight, listen carefully. Sagittarius, an average day. Others will admire you in the next 4 weeks. Someone will seek your advice about how to make something look more attractive. Tonight, work and get better organized. Capricorn, a positive day. Opportunities to travel for pleasure will increase in the next 4 weeks. Be aware of this and be ready to act if you can break free of your daily routine. Tonight, socialize. Aquarius, average day. The next 4 weeks are an excellent time for financial negotiations and discussions about shared property, inheritances, or anything that you jointly own with someone else. Tonight, relax at home. And Pisces, an average day. Fair Venus is opposite your sign for the next 3 weeks, which is one of the best places it can be. Tonight, enjoy a conversation.
And today in history, in 1868, the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was finally ratified, passed by Congress 2 years prior. The landmark amendment guaranteed citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and that all citizens will be provided with equal protection under the laws. In 1955, Bill Haley and his Comet single, Rock Around the Clock, became the first rock and roll recording to hit #1 on Billboard's charts. And in 2020, the World Health Organization announced that the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, is transmittable through air and could be spread by asymptomatic carriers. And new graduate school loan caps touch off a scramble. New federal rules sharply cap how much graduate students can borrow, forcing an immediate sea change in how students evaluate attaining an advanced degree, with some scrambling to pay tuition and for colleges prompting their programs, prompting concerns about future access to their programs. Under the previous rules, graduate students could take out federal loans for as much as they needed to cover the cost of their master's and doctorate degrees, including tuition and living expenses, often taking on crushing long-term debt that contributed to a national epidemic and defaults. Effective July 1, borrowing is restricted to $20,500 annually with a $100,000 cap. Those pursuing designated professional degrees, including law, medicine, and dentistry, are limited to $50,000 a year with a $200,000 cap. The median total cost for a master's degree in 2020, before inflation skyrocketed, was $24,250, while professional degrees came in at $59,076, though some universities, particularly private institutions, charge far more, according to Ed Trust, a nonprofit that advocates for equity in education. The Trump administration clamped down on borrowing, part of its overall federal student loan programs, saying that the previous uncapped loans for graduate school spiraled tuition upward, and the limits would encourage colleges to trim costs. Already, at least 2 graduate school programs in California, including the UC Irving Graduate Business School, have lowered costs. But some education experts said the changes are more likely to restrict access to learning, especially for lower income students who have trouble qualifying for or paying private loans. It will not lock everybody out, said Jennifer Delaney, an education finance expert at UC Berkeley, but there will be an inequitable lockout of folks from lower income backgrounds. Folks who earn graduate degrees earn higher levels of income. If lower income households can't afford to attend, you are creating limits on people who can. Future concerns, Delaney at UC Berkeley said she doubts colleges will take such action on large scale because educating students is people intensive with limited ways to cut costs. There hasn't been a technological solution that has really made us profoundly more productive than the teaching and learning function from the Middle Ages. It's a sage on the stage in a lecture hall. You've been listening to a reading on articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, June 9th. We read on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak, and we'll go to our City and Region section. City will pay more to borrow after rating downgrade. This is from Justin Sondel, who's a news staff reporter. Borrowing money just got a little more expensive for the City of Buffalo. S&P Global Ratings has downgraded both the city's general obligation and short-term borrowing ratings. A report from the agency said that the city's rating was lowered in part because of reduced financial flexibility due to the drawdown of reserve funds and imbalanced budgets in recent years. The report, which was distributed by the City Controller's Office, also notes that the city has already taken corrective measures to get the city's finances back on track with the budget year that began in July, Mayor Sean Ryan's first budget, seeing significant revenue increases through the rise of the tax levy and positive changes to budgeting practices. Still, the report notes that some one-time revenues are included in the current fiscal year budget, and that despite plans from Ryan's administration to replenish its depleted reserve accounts, it will take several years of reserve fund growth for the rating to be adjusted upward again. At less than 7% of operating revenue, available reserves significantly lag those of state peers. While we acknowledge that in nominal terms the operating budget is significantly larger than those of most New York State municipalities, we believe that the reserve position, both nominally and as a percentage of the budget, is insufficient to support a higher rating, according to the report. The downgrade from A+ to A also comes with a change in outlook status from negative, a precursor to a downgrade, to stable, meaning the agency expects the rating to stay the same or improve for the duration of the 2-year outlook window. As a result, the city will have less favorable terms when bonding, including higher interest rates on the debt. Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swanekamp described the downgrade as disappointing and said the city is talking with the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority about the possibility of bonding through the Control Board, which has a AAA rating, the highest achievable. We want to make sure we get the best possible deal for our capital borrowing, and that means having a serious conversation about using the BFSA, Swanekamp said. Control Board analysis found that issuing bonds set to go out this August through the Control Board instead of the city would save the city approximately $300,000 in interest payments over the course of the 10-year repayment period. Swanekamp said the rating agencies highly value healthy reserve funds in their analyses, and so replenishing those accounts is a priority for the administration. The current budget should close with the Emergency Reserve Fund, which was used to close recent end-of-year budget gaps, to be entirely replenished. In future years, the administration plans to replenish the unassigned fund balance. So it's a key area for us to dig out, Swanekamp said. In a news release, Controller Barbara Miller-Williams said the details of the report reflect many of the issues she has been warning about during her time in office.
Potential suspects identified in holding center homicide. Antonio Pizarro's body was found in his jail cell, but he didn't die on his own. It appears he was targeted and killed by 2 inmates in the Erie County Holding Center, one of whom restrained him from fighting back while the other one choked him Saturday. No information has yet been released by law enforcement about the circumstances of Pizarro's death, how an attack could occur, why it was not stopped in progress, or how much time passed before holding center deputies found Pizarro unresponsive in his cell at 11:11 a.m. Attempts by jail staff to save his life were made but failed. The sheriff's office issued a news release over the weekend saying the death is being investigated as a homicide and that potential suspects have been identified. We do not have an update to provide, spokesman Chris Horvath said Monday afternoon. No charges have been filed. The investigation is ongoing. Pizarro, 27, was taken into custody June 30th and was being held on parole violation charges. I think it's fair to say that based on the information that I am aware of, I believe there will be charges leveled against 2 individuals, stated county executive, but it's up to the district attorney or the attorney general's office to determine what levels of charges those are. A spokesperson for the district attorney's office said DA Michael King would not comment due to the ongoing investigation. Sheriff John Garcia did not respond to requests for comment. Unlike other deaths in the jail, which have involved suicides and deaths resulting from overdoses, medical emergencies, or neglect, Pizarro's death appears to represent the first one in 14 years in which an inmate's death may have resulted from violence against him by another person or persons in custody. The Attorney General's office has begun a preliminary assessment in the matter to determine whether any holding center staff played a direct or indirect role in Pizarro's death. The State Correction Commission intends to investigate the homicide death. Ruth?
City finance leader resigns after just 6 months in the role. This is also by Justin Sundell, news staff reporter. The city's Commissioner of Finance and Administration has resigned. Jessica Brown, who took the job at the beginning of the year as Mayor Sean Ryan's administration moved into City Hall, has resigned effective August 4th, though her last day at City Hall was Monday, according to a written statement from Ryan's press office. Budget Director Saran Askew will serve as acting commissioner during a transition period, and the administration will be announcing a new Commissioner of Administration and Finance shortly. We thank Commissioner Brown for her service to the City of Buffalo during a period of extraordinary financial uncertainty. Her tremendous work ethic and commitment to the city was invaluable as we prepared and announced the 2026-27 budget and 4-year plan. We wish her all the best in her future endeavors. A Ryan spokesperson declined to comment further. Fillmore Council member Mitchell Nowakowski, who chairs the Council's Finance Committee, said he had not been given a reason as to why Brown was leaving. He said that Brown was always helpful and responsive as they worked through a difficult budget, and that it is important that they replace her quickly given the importance of the role. I hope they go back to the drawing board and get a really good candidate that knows the numbers, is going to be truthful, and knows how to come to council and work with the Common Council to make sure that we can maintain this ship, Nowakowski said. Because this departure comes at a very inopportune time when our city has to raise taxes significantly, get us out of a structural deficit, and with multiple cash infusions from parking ramps to more state aid revenue, we need that job filled by someone who can do the job.
And stadium neighbor sells home after legal battle. The Orchard Park resident embroiled in a legal battle over a gas station and convenience store project next door to his home that neighbors the Buffalo Bills Stadium is now selling that property. Gary Trella is finalizing the sale of his 4317 Abbott Road property next to where a project to build a Crosby's gas station and convenience store is going forward at the corner of Big Tree and Abbott Roads. His property is under contract but has not closed, so details of the sale are not being released. Trella was asking $420,000 and likely got over that price for the nearly 1-acre property that includes 1,150 square foot home that can be used for game day and event parking just a few blocks away from Highmark Stadium. It marks a shift in the 2-year legal battle Trella has waged with the Ellicott Development and the town of Orchard Park, and even the Bills over the project at 4297 and 4309 Abbott Road, across from Danny South, and the town's effort to rezone the area around the stadium. While Trella still has one of his 3 legal cases pending, the gas station and convenience store project is getting closer to becoming a reality. This is one of the reasons Trella is selling his property, but not the only one. He is also taking advantage of the opportunity that has been presented by the new Highmark Stadium opening soon. I have a big lot with a sold-out tailgate every game, he said in a text message. So really, I wanted to sell because of the excitement of the new stadium. The project that Trella and some of his neighbors have been fighting since 2024 includes a 6 dispenser gas station in front of the property toward Big Tree Road, with a 4,000 square foot building to house Crosby's at the back of the property and driveway access at Abbott Road. EV charging stations are also in the plans. Ellicott Development has been using much of the property that will be part of the project for game day and stadium event parking, while the back portion of the property from the Big Tree entrance is now up for lease or sale. The project is going forward. Orchard Park Supervisor Joe Liberty recently confirmed the town board approved the site plan and authorized a building permit for the project during the meeting in May. Despite the efforts in court by Trella, and preliminary work is now being done to prepare the site for construction. The project is scheduled to be finished in the spring, according to Ellicott Development, which reached a long-term lease with the property's new tenant-to-be. Trella said previously that he would consider selling his 4317 Abbott Road property rather than stay if he was unsuccessful with his lawsuits and the project ever got going. He argued that the plans include a drive-through window with a menu board that would be 22 feet from his bedroom window. But what ultimately convinced Trella to sell his property was seeing how much Shane Pouty got for the Bills Mafia house on Fay Street across from the more than $2 billion stadium. That property quickly sold earlier this year for $810,000, which is more than $100,000 more than the asking price. Pouty paid $58,000 for the property in 2013. Trella hired the same realtor, Caitlin Eddy, who sold the Bills Mafia house. Trella owns another Abbott Road property across from one he is selling and is now moving there. The 4317 Abbott Road property has the potential to become a turnkey Airbnb or become a commercial property with space to park more than 60 vehicles for stadium events. Trella filed a third lawsuit against the town of Orchard Park earlier this year, requesting that the court void a new zoning law the town passed in December because of the lack of a completed new comprehensive plan and flawed approvals process that favored Ellicott Development and the Bills. LaBella Associates, which has been providing services for both the Bills and the town, and the OBD extension, an arm of the Bills, were also included in that suit. That case is still ongoing after Trella staved off a motion to dismiss last month, with proceedings slated to continue this week. Orchard Park Zoning Board determined that Ellicott's project would not have adverse impacts or create undesirable changes for the neighborhood and nearby property owners, and there weren't feasible alternatives to developing the site without changing its positive impact. It granted variances for the project in 2024 and again earlier this year. The parcel on the corner of Southwestern Boulevard and Abbott Road, which included the former KK Food Mart, sold last year for $2 million to local business owner and real estate investor John Duncan and his wife Ashley Brown. They have reopened the convenience store, which is now known as the Staple. In 2022, the Bills purchased the former mud lot where the team knocked down a house and converted the 8 acres on Big Tree Road into a parking for team and staff. The Bills paid $2 million to purchase the property, but that was about half of the original asking price. You've been listening to a reading and articles and features with Buffalo News. And the time is 14 minutes after the hour, and we will go on to sports. Vision Quest. How will the Bills offense change with Brady as head coach? Here's a long look. We may never know how much influence Sean McDermott had on the Buffalo Bills' offensive game plans and strategies during his 9 seasons in charge. Last season, as running back, James Cook became the NFL's rushing champion, and more often than not, superstar quarterback Josh Allen bailed out McDermott's ailing defense. The head coach took the opportunity to criticize some of the play calls during press conferences. After the loss to the New England Patriots, McDermott lamented that his team failed to command the line of scrimmage. In the aftermath of a defeat in Atlanta, McDermott told reporters he met with offensive coordinator Joe Brady to discuss the need to get Cook more involved early in the game. McDermott's decision to mention his conversation with Brady to reporters injected unnecessary noise following back-to-back losses, and it came across as finger-pointing. The roller coaster injury-plagued season followed by McDermott's firing and Brady's promotion to head coach raised a question that will go unanswered until the regular season begins September 13th. How much will the offense change in 2026 with someone new in charge of the Bills? Defensive coaches like McDermott typically prefer an ultra-conservative approach centered on running the football. More often than not, they want receivers to be an extension of the rushing attack, relying on yards after the catch to try to keep their defense off the field. As he reminded everyone at his first news conference as the Bills' head coach, Brady is a product of Sean Payton's coaching tree. Payton isn't conservative. The Super Bowl champion and future Hall of Famer has his quarterback in Denver last season, Bo Nix, lead the NFL in pass attempts, and the Broncos' defense was still among the best in the NFL. Brady leaned into those ties this offseason when the Bills hired Payton's longtime offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael, to assist in Brady's efforts to call plays as a head coach. Excuse me. The aggression. Bills threw on first down 170 times, second fewest in the NFL, ahead of the Commanders' 175. Yet Allen had some encouraging production when he was allowed to test the defense early. Buffalo ranked 5th in expected points added per first down pass, according to Next Gen Stats, and it averaged 7.4 yards on those pass attempts. No team ran the ball on first down more often than the Bills, who totaled 38 rushes of 10-plus yards in those situations and ranked second in first down rushing success rate. Opponents may change the way they choose to defend them, though. Allen and the Bills faced a stacked box on just 23.5% of the offense's 310 first down carries, 16th most in the NFL. Could Brady be more willing to take risks on the first down in 2025? Throwing deep, receivers did not get open for Allen often enough in 2025, but he wasn't effective enough on deep passes either. On passes of 20-plus yards, Allen threw for 599 yards with 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He ranked 8th in EPA per dropback per Next Gen Stats and 7th in completion percentage on those throws. Though the Bills will still rely on yards after the catch, they were too easy to defend last season because defenses did not fear their ability to stretch the field. Personnel groupings. Get ready for more plays with 3 tight ends on the field. Brady wanted 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, to be a staple of the Bills' offense last season. But Dalton Kincaid's health caused them to scale back on those plays during the middle and latter portions of the season. Kincaid is healthy now, plus Buffalo has Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes. Without a proven fullback on the roster, the Bills are going to rely on their tight ends. If Kincaid stays healthy, he can work in line with Knox and Hawes on the field. Doing so would make them less predictable and potentially create some advantageous matchups for Moore. Blocking. Brady prefers not to use a sixth player on the field as a blocker to help Allen in the offensive line. The more pass catchers, the easier it is for a quarterback to find someone who's open. But some of the Bills' opponents in 2025 exploited the tendency, most notably the Houston Texans, who sacked Allen 8 times in a Week 12 matchup. Will strategy shift this season with left guard David Edwards gone? If so, we could see the tight end like Hawes or third down running back like Ty Johnson on the field more often to at least clip a potential free rusher. Backfield targets. As our Jay Skursky wrote recently, we may see Cook's usage change this fall. The reigning NFL rushing champion did not have the same burst and effectiveness during the fourth quarter of games. To get more out of Cook, the Bills may lean more on Johnson and Ray Davis. We also may see Cook more often as a pass catcher, which could lead to fewer carries. During the 2023 season, Carmichael's left as the Saints play-calling offensive coordinator without to get more out of Cook. The Bills may lean more on Johnson and Ray Davis. We also may see Cook more often as a pass catcher, which could lead to fewer carries. During the 2023 season, Carmichael's last as the Saints play-calling offensive coordinator without Peyton. Alvin Kamara ranked second among NFL running backs with 75 catches on 86 targets, and he ran 264 routes.
Mighty France, Morocco get ready to tangle in Foxborough. This is from Reuters. France has scored a tournament-leading 14 goals in the World Cup so far, but coach Didier Deschamps urged his players on Wednesday to achieve even greater attacking efficiency when they take on Morocco in their quarterfinal at 4 p.m. Thursday. The meeting is a rematch of the 2022 World Cup semifinal when France ended Morocco's historic run in Qatar. But this time, the North Africans are no longer the surprise outsiders. They're a confident side aiming for the title. We have to be efficient, offensively speaking, Deschamps said, in all the areas. Both teams have strong assets. We are efficient, but we could have done better on this front. Sometimes you have 6 chances and score 2 goals, and sometimes you have 2 chances and score twice. It is more important to be efficient. France edged past Paraguay in the round of 16 with a scrappy 1-0 win, courtesy of Kylian Mbappé's penalty. The France captain has 7 goals in the tournament, second behind Argentina's Lionel Messi, who has 8. Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, Michael Olise, and Bradley Barcola have given France one of the most dangerous forward lines at the World Cup. Morocco eased through its group stage before knocking out Netherlands and co-host Canada, confirming their status as serious title contenders. Deschamps will need to wait and see whether midfielder Aurélien Tchouameni, who has been nursing a muscle injury, will be fit in time for the game. He feels better, but I left early from the hotel this morning. I cannot say more. As for France's appeal to have Michael Olise's yellow card in the game against Paraguay rescinded, Deschamps said FIFA had informed them that caution stood. The ruling comes days after the furor caused by FIFA's decision to suspend a ban after a red card was given to U.S. player Florian Balogun and following an intervention by President Donald Trump. In the build-up to the France-Morocco game, some eyebrows were raised when FIFA confirmed that the officiating crew would all be Argentine. Typically, the referee and his 2 assistants are from the same country, but for the first time at this World Cup, all 5 officials are from the same country, including the 4th official and the reserve assistant referee. With France and Argentina both among the favorites to meet in the final, France reserve goalkeeper Robin Risser is said ahead of the game that fans shouldn't worry about bias from the Argentine officials. We must not become paranoid, he said. If these referees are involved, it's because they are up to the level of the competition. Facundo Tello will take charge of the match between France and Morocco with support from assistants Juan Pablo Bellotti and Gabriel Schad.
We'll now see what's happening in baseball. Verlander to retire. Detroit Tigers right-hander Justin Verlander will retire at the end of the season, his 21st in the minors. His announcement came Wednesday as he was named to the American League's roster for the 2026 All-Star Game as a legend pick. I never wanted to retire because of a milestone, a number, or a date on the calendar. I wanted the game to tell me when it was time. Over the last several months, I've realized that this time has come. Well, stay healthy and enjoy your retirement. And now the standings in the leagues. In the American League East, Tampa Bay is leading with 53 wins and 36 losses. New York is second with 50 wins and 41 losses. In the American League Central Division, Chicago is leading with 47 wins and 43 losses, and Cleveland is second with 47 wins and 45 losses. American League West, Seattle leading with 47 wins, 45 losses. Texas is second with 46 wins and 45 losses. In the National League East, Atlanta is ahead, first place, with 52 wins, 38 losses, and Philadelphia is second with 51 wins and 41 losses. In the Central National League, Milwaukee is in the lead with 58 wins and 33 losses, and Chicago is second with 51 wins and 40 losses. National League West, Los Angeles is first with 60 wins and 33 losses, and Arizona is second with 45 wins and 46 losses.
Porter Cup gears up for another global field. This is by Colin Ritchie, News Staff Reporter. The 67th Annual Porter Cup is nearly ready to tee off at the Niagara Falls Country Club with the unique usual, if you will, an exciting blend of backgrounds creating a pool of some of the best amateur golfers from around the globe. The tournament begins Wednesday. Blake Phillips of Australia won the men's division last summer, topping a field that, as always, included a field of international players and local standouts. Western New York is well represented this year again, with a handful of local players in the men's and women's division. That starts with the oldest player in the field, Buffalo native Billy Haynes, 40, won the New York State Mid-Amateur Championship at Buffalo District Golf Association Men's Individual Championship in 2023. He will try to improve his effort from last year when he finished 6th. On the other end is Natalie Wassick, one of two 14-year-olds competing next week, the youngest participants in the Porter Cup this year. The Lockport native attends Narden Academy and recorded the best score in stroke play in the girls' division at the International Junior Masters last month. She is among many who seem poised to join the list of rising amateurs who make their stops at the Porter Cup before rising to pro superstardom. Other Western New Yorkers include Michael Boss, Lewiston, Christopher Boyes, Tonawanda, Mike Dunner, Buffalo, and Jack Terblue, Hamburg on the men's side, and Rosalie D'Annunzio, Clarence, Victoria Leach, Clarence Center, and Gwendolyn Yarnell, East Aurora on the women's side. And internationally, 7 nations are represented at the Porter Cup, including the U.S., Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Argentina, and Ukraine. Pat?
I think we'll go to break.
We'll continue now with our reading from articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Novotniak, and that's not the break. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 29 minutes past the hour. And we'll see what Asking Eric has to say today. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I wasn't. Okay.
Eric.
Yes, B7, not A7. Sorry about that. Gift to a strange grandchild may come with strings. Dear Eric, a few years ago, my 24-year-old child came out as non-binary and chose a new name, Avery. While the adjustment hasn't always been easy, most of our immediate family now use Avery's new name and pronouns. The exception is my husband's parents, especially my father-in-law, who does not accept Avery's identity and has criticized them about it in phone calls and texts. As a result, they are now estranged. Avery will turn 25 in a few weeks, and apparently my father-in-law has a tradition of giving each grandchild $10,000 on that birthday. My husband only learned about this yesterday when his father called to discuss it. He wants the gifts to be a surprise and asks us not to tell Avery ahead of time. During the same conversation, however, he insisted that he will never accept Avery's identity, though he says he hopes to repair the relationship. The timing is difficult because Avery wants to return to college this fall to finish their degree. I've already told them I can help with tuition but not living expenses. So this money would make a real difference. My husband, who has reluctantly accepted Avery's identity but still believes it may be a phase, thinks Avery should simply accept the money and move on. I plan to support whatever Avery decides, but I also wish there was some way to mend the relationship with their grandparents without asking Avery to ignore the hurt they've experienced. Should I encourage Avery to accept the gift as a loving gesture, despite the rejection that accompanies it? Or would doing so only deepen the pain and confusion for everyone involved? Torn between peace and principle. Dear Torn, it seems unlikely that, given Avery's grandfather's position, this money wouldn't come with some strings, at least emotionally. So it's best that Avery goes into this arrangement clear-eyed. That isn't to say that they have to accept or agree to any strings. If their grandfather wants to repair the relationship, a check isn't going to be the thing to do it. Since they're estranged, it would be helpful to find out what your father-in-law plans to do in order to get Avery this money. If he, for instance, wants to show up unannounced, it would be helpful to encourage him to rethink it or to warn Avery. But Avery is also an adult and should be trusted to navigate complex family dynamics on their own. If they're looking for advice, you can tell them that in this case, accepting the money doesn't seem to require denying anything about themselves, and as you noted, will help them to continue to pursue their dreams. Next letter. Dear Eric, I have a question about dividing belongings after a loved one dies. My mother is over 90 and failing. She will not likely live long. She has a house full of things that have huge sentimental value to my siblings. I have 7 brothers and sisters that have varying relationships to my mom and me, from estranged to very close. As the executor, I am very concerned about how it will go after she passes. She has chosen one of her possessions to go to every child and grandchild, but this only puts a small dent in what she has. The emotions will be quite high. Suggestions on how to handle this? Selling everything and splitting the money does not seem like the right thing to do. Concerned daughter. Dear daughter, I'm sorry about your mother's failing health. I am sure that negotiating her care, your feelings, and the questions around the estate is complicated and difficult. If your mother is willing, ask her to invite each child to come to the house before she passes, go through the sentimental items, and make a list of what they'd like. I've seen cases in which family members will go through a home and put stickers on things to claim them. This allows your siblings and you the added benefit of connecting with your mom about these items before she's gone. This also allows you to preview any item that might be contentious. If 2 siblings want the same thing, you can then tell them and ask them to work it out between each other in advance. If they can't come to an agreement, perhaps you do a simple drawing to determine who takes it. It's best that you communicate your plan and the reasoning behind it with everyone clearly. You may even want to send the list out to everyone in advance, so there's less possibility for confusion and recrimination. Emotions may still cause people to pull you into conflicts, but by front-loading your desire for fairness and removing yourself from being the final word, You can add some peace and reason to a complex family dynamic.
In-shop respite. Some retailers offering quiet hour breaks to limit sensory stimuli. Sephora is the latest retailer to offer its neurodivergent customers quiet hours, or a low-key shopping experience that limits sensory triggers in its stores. The move from the beauty retailer follows similar initiatives from other companies. Here's what you should know. Sephora announced in June that at specific times, all of its stores will lower their music volume, adjust in-store screens, and minimize strong scents to foster a calmer atmosphere with fewer distractions. According to a company news release, Sephora did not specify which times quiet hours would be implemented. The nationwide rollout follows an initial pilot program at 32 of the beauty store's locations in 8 markets. It was developed alongside the disability advocacy organization Open Inclusion and business consultancy firm Purposeful Futures. Quiet hours at Sephora is one meaningful step in our ongoing commitment to building more welcoming environments for our employees, consumers, and communities. And we know there is still much more to learn and do, said Sephora's Global Chief Marketing Officer, Deborah Ye. We're proud of this step forward and equally committed to continuing to listen, learn, and grow alongside the communities we serve. Neurodivergence is an umbrella term that encompasses the diverse makeup of neural processing as it manifests differently for everyone. While not an official medical term, some use it to describe a range of learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and more, according to the Cleveland Clinic. It can include intense sensitivities to fluorescent or flickering lights, background music, announcements, crowded chatter, strong-smelling foods, perfume, cleaning product smells, unexpected touch in tight aisles, or flashing displays and signage, according to True Progress Therapy. By listening directly to neurodivergent and sensory-sensitive beauty customers across 5 countries, we uncovered clear opportunities to rethink what more inclusive beauty retail spaces look, sound, and feel like, said Christine Hemphill of Open Inclusion, one of the groups that Sephora consulted with. This helped create an environment that is more welcoming, accessible, and comfortable for many people. Hemphill added that quiet hours are the future of retail. Leading the charge. In 2023, Walmart became the first major retailer to implement sensory sensitivity shopping in all its stores across the United States. What started as a couple of hours on Saturdays has blossomed into 2-hour daily occurrences from 8 to 10 a.m. During that time, Walmart turns off its overhead music, dims the light where possible, and turns all of its TVs to static images. According to the company, the changes were made based on feedback it received not only from customers but also from its employees who have attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, autism, and other conditions. From face-to-face conversations, emails, listening sessions, social media, and other personal experiences in the stores, we have seen what these changes mean for our customers and associates, Walmart said in a news release at the time. No other retailers in the United States permanently made sensory sensitivity shopping part of their operating schedules. However, 2 companies experimented with it in the past and offer experience at select locations, including Target and Toys R Us. Similar to Walmart, during these times, Target stores dim the lights, turn off the music, and limit the number of announcements. Additionally, Target offers sensory-friendly carts equipped with safety harnesses and support for children with sensory sensitivities, according to Level Ahead ABA, a Georgia-based medical clinic. The Quiet Hour initiative in Toys R Us stores offers a more relaxed shopping experience for individuals with autism, like Target and Walmart. The stores dim the lights, turn off music, and provide a quieter environment per Level Ahead ABA. In the restaurant space, Chuck E. Cheese offers a monthly program dubbed Sensory Sensitive Sundays. Essentially, on the first Sunday of every month, Chuck E. Cheese opens its doors 2 hours before regular operating hours with dim lights, reduced sound, no flashing effects, and a calmer game room and dining environment. What's more, the staff who work these shifts are trained to offer patient, flexible, and non-judgmental support, according to the company's website. Chuck E. Cheese's initiative, which is not available at all locations, has been around since 2016 with the support of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
And we have a science article. When the South froze over, Antarctica turned icy before the North Pole. A recently published study may indicate why. This is from Reuters. While it once was temperate and lush, Earth's southernmost continent, Antarctica, froze over about 34 million years ago, covered by an ice sheet that today is up to 3 miles thick. By contrast, the planet's northernmost realm, the Arctic region, did not freeze over for another 25 million years. This polar asymmetry long puzzled scientists, but researchers might now have solved the mystery. They assessed the Antarctic region's topography and used computational models to reconstruct how the surface evolved. They found that a powerful geological process drove the renewed uplift of a mountain range in eastern Antarctica that eventually passed an elevation threshold crucial for letting mountain glaciers form and expand and for permanent ice to take hold. The result was the appearance of a vast East Antarctic ice sheet at a time when global temperatures were about 9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than today. That left the South Pole with an ice cap long before the long-term global cooling trend enabled an ice cap to become established around the North Pole. The East Antarctic ice sheet was in place by the start of a chapter in Earth's history called the Oligocene epoch, which followed the Eocene epoch. Antarctica once was part of the southern hemisphere supercontinent called Gondwana that also included land masses that are now Africa, South America, Australia, Arabia, and the Indian subcontinent. As part of the process called plate tectonics, involving an inexorable movement of continent-scale plates on the planet's surface, these land masses eventually separated and crept toward their current location. That process started more than 160 million years ago during the continental breakup of Africa and Antarctica and played out over many tens of millions of years, determined when and where Earth's major ice sheets could form during those transition periods, approximately 34 million years ago. The transition marked the change from Earth's warm greenhouse climate to the current cooler period. Antarctica remained connected to Australia and South America for tens of millions of years after Africa drifted away, eventually separating from those as well. This geological process is a phenomenon called mantle waves, slow-moving disturbances deep within the Earth that are triggered during continental breakup. These waves can remove dense rock from the underside of tectonic plates, making the continents lighter and causing them to rise, ultimately forming high ground, such as plateaus and mountain ranges. When these mantle waves moved under Antarctica, they caused the formation of a large plateau, a range in the central part of eastern Antarctica, These mountains reach up to about 11,100 feet. The range is now buried under the world's largest ice sheet. The researchers said the erosion and uplift caused by mantle waves gradually pushed the landscape to elevations high enough for ice to stabilize, even amid a warm global climate. Just as temperatures fall as we climb a high mountain, higher elevations are more likely to retain snow year-round. We found that before Antarctica became glaciated, the area of the mountains above the critical elevation for sustaining ice increased dramatically. By about 34 million years ago, nearly 90% of the region lay above this threshold, compared with only about 1/3 60 million years ago. The situation differed in the Arctic, where glaciers mixed and waned over the past 50 million years, but large ice sheets did not stabilize until less than 10 million years ago. There is no actual land at the North Pole. It is situated in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. That means there was no terrain to reach the elevation threshold earlier to foster permanent ice. Pat?
We do have an Alan Pergament article today. WGRZ TV continues to lean on local ties with Crest Edition. WGRZ TV Channel 2 on-air promotions have played up the fact that many of its anchors and reporters are from Western New York. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a consideration for the station hiring meteorologist Sarah Kress to replace Jennifer Stanonis. A reader commented in the column announcing the hiring of Kress that she wouldn't be here long, judging by how long she stayed in previous jobs. However, media members who are from Western New York are more likely to stay longer and even finish their careers here. Kress, who is from Wilson, is expected to start soon. There is no guarantee that someone from here will stay. Kristen Moran, who was strong Channel 7 reporter, left for a TV job in a bigger market of Cleveland before joining the staff of the Clinton Foundation less than a year later. An Ohio State University graduate, Kress recently worked for a station in Medford, Oregon. It is a big jump in market size for her. Medford is the number 139 TV market in the country, where Buffalo is number 54. Congratulations are in order for Channel 4 host Chelsea Lovell. The host of the afternoon program, Daytime Buffalo, was the first runner-up recently in the Miss New York State competition. She was first in the fitness and interview categories. Of course, she has plenty of practice doing interviews. Pete Guelli, president of business operations for the Buffalo Bills, has confirmed that there won't be a radio sideline reporter for the team's preseason games carried on 97 Rock and affiliates. That is no great loss, especially considering who wins preseason games doesn't matter. Steve Tasker, who will be on the sidelines during the regular season, will be working as the analyst on the preseason telecast carried by Channel 4. Before he left Odyssey, the owner of multiple Buffalo radio stations last week, former Buffalo market manager Tim Wenger confirmed that the company is still looking for a replacement for Janet Snyder on the WKSE FM morning show Nick and Weeze in the Morning. He said that Sue O'Neill, the KISS brand manager, and the person who works for Odyssey are leading the search. The process is unfolding and making lots of progress too, said Wenger. Glad to see that Channel 2 has finally gotten around to deleting Stanonis and reporter Alexa Rio Malvaya from its website as members of its news team after I mentioned how odd it was they were still mentioned as being staffed. Buddy Shula, owner of WEC and WUSW 1270 AM, reports that it is now easier to receive his station, WUSV 1270, in a wider area of Western New York. It has expanded the 2 Metro FM dial positions, 93.3 for North Towns and 95.1 for Buffalo and the South Towns. These are 2 frequencies provide WUSW with complete Metro AM and FM coverage, Shula wrote in an email. Shula claimed there is no other independent station owner in the U.S. that has a total of 5 FM frequencies in a mid-sized city metro. Ruth?
Everything must go. This is an article on decluttering, and it's from Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. 4 tips for hosting a successful yard sale. Every summer, many people come to a realization they have too much stuff. Dust collects, piles grow, and usable space shrinks. One of the best ways to get rid of extra stuff also comes with the promise of making some cash. Whether described by the word rummage, yard, or garage, all signs point to a sale. But where do you start? How do you price your items? How can you make as much money as possible? Here's what Marquette University marketing professor Alex Molovich says are his top tips for hosting a successful yard sale this summer. 1. Set the right price. Everyone thinks their stuff is worth more than it is, Molovich says. The best way to price correctly is to do some research. Whether it's checking out other sales, thrift stores, or even Goodwill, looking around is the best way to find out how much your items are worth. By taking the time to look at how other sales and stores price their products, it reduces the chance your prices will be inflated by bias, known as the endowment effect. But most importantly, he said your items just need a price tag. That's always one of my biggest pet peeves, Milovich says. If I don't see a price, I don't want to buy. Of course, prices might need to be adjusted over the course of the sale. If you're hosting one, constantly monitor foot traffic around the sale, and if any areas are being ignored, try to readjust. Other consideration to make before the sale starts is to decide what payment you'll accept. Will the sale be cash only, or will you take Venmo or other electronic payments? 2. Put items in the right place. If you're setting up your makeshift store, don't put anything on the ground. It instantly lowers the perceived value of the item. Instead, set up as many tables as possible, even creating makeshift ones that bring the goods closer to eye level. In terms of ordering the items for sale, there's a delicate balance. If all of the cheap items are on the curb, passers-by might assume that only cheap goods are available at your garage sale. If only expensive items are at the onset, they might assume everything is too expensive. That's why, for eye appeal, it's key to have a mix of prices and products at the boundary of your garage sale. 3. Get people to your sale. If you're putting out signs, try to place them blocks away from your home to draw in as many people as possible. For online promotion, Facebook can localize content to users. That means people nearest to you will be the ones that find out about your sale when you advertise it. However, a garage sale might also compete with online purchasing from Facebook Marketplace or eBay, where it might be easier for someone to find the specific thing they want with minimal effort. That's where it's up to you to stand out. If I'm doing a garage sale, why is it better than just going on Marketplace or just buying or shipping it through eBay? How do I make this inviting? One way to draw people in is by being part of a larger neighborhood sale. But then, he says, you should be ready to compete for business. The likelihood that people in your neighborhood have similar things to you is strong. We tend to live near people that are like us. He said it's important to have a sale that builds a positive atmosphere. Offering food and drinks might even be a way to stand out from the crowd. And 4, be ready for bargaining. A customer approaches you. Finally, there's someone interested in that one item that just won't sell. But there's a catch. They lowball you. So begins a back-and-forth negotiation. The biggest thing in bargaining is to be firm. Before going into a potential negotiation, consider the lowest possible amount of money you would accept for something and then stand firm on it. If they won't budge, you might have to negotiate with yourself. How badly do you want to get rid of it? Another option for bargaining is to offer bundled goods. You can offer adjusted prices to customers interested in multiple items, or even put out a table with bundled discounts, such as buying 2 items and getting the third for free. The most important thing is to be nice. If you're friendly and get to know people, you have a better chance of getting a more desirable outcome.
A lot of good tips there.
Just
the right time of year for it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Although I haven't seen as many signs this year as I usually do. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, July 9th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak, and thank you for listening.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.